Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Harry Schnabel. As chairman of the German Datacenter Association, I would like to welcome you all very warmly to Datacenter in Denmark and Germany. We are pleased to have organized this unique event together with the BVMW and the team of Benny Sørensen in spite of current restrictions, and together with my friend Friedemann, we have discussed that we can do that together. So we are able to provide you with valuable first-hand input on the ecosystem for data centers in both countries. The cooperation with existing organizations and associations is one of the focal points of the German Data Center Association. A common approach, of course, simplifies the achievement of goals. Furthermore, it is our special concern to formulate and coordinate German interests in Europe and to reach joint solutions with European partners. We are already cooperating with the Dutch Data Centers Association, and we are currently cooperation talks with associations and organizations in Finland, Norway, Ireland, Switzerland, and of course with Henrik Hansen. Now I look forward to two interesting hours with all of you, invaluable contributions and lively discussions. Let us gain a unique insight into the business opportunities, and then I think we have a lot of them for the next time, in Germany and Denmark. The next speaker would be Henrik Hansen as director of the data center industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harry. And thanks for the organizers behind this event. My name is Henrik Hansen, and I'm, as Harry said, I'm the CEO of the Danish data center industry. And I'm very happy that we can join forces here and trying to learn a little bit more about our respective countries with regard to the data center development. So in my brief presentation here, I'll just tell you a few things about the Danish market and also the Danish association. And then I'm sure we'll get back to some of the details later on in other presentations from the Danish side and also in our discussions at the end of this seminar. Our story does not run that far back. We were established as an association in 2017. And what we are organizing is what we call the ecosystem in the data center industry. So it represents both some of the operators, suppliers, consultants, educational institutions, and municipalities. So we have sort of a broad range of actors in our industry, and we have at the moment about 75 members in the association. A few things about what we are focusing on. Of course, the entire energy issue as a very central part of our discussions, not just in Denmark, but everywhere. How we build more sustainable data centers, maybe even climate positive data centers. That's one of the challenges that we're working on. Also, we're looking very much into the skills side because we see a lack of young people, a lack of women in this industry. So we have to build the competence base further in order for the companies to have access to the skilled workforce. And the third part of our focus is the regulatory side, where we look into how we can build the best possible framework for the data center industry with terms of taxes and also the strategy for developing this industry. And what we do, we brand Denmark as a country, an investment country. We facilitate knowledge sharing, and we promote our members' interests. Just a few sentences of this. And as I said, the members is a broad range within the ecosystem, and then we work together with a lot of partners. For example, Dansk Erhverv, who will be part of this webinar in a short while. Brian Mikkelsen, who is the CEO there, but also a lot of digital associations as well as energy associations, since we see the data centers as really in the core of the connection between energy and digital services. So we look very much for further cooperation with industries in both sides of that. A look at the map in Denmark. It's not everything that we have included in this map, but you have some of the major investments that have been made over the past 3-4 years. And as you can see, it's pretty much most of the country that have activities within data centers. We have some of the large hyperscalers building in Denmark. Actually, both Facebook, Google, and Apple are now in operation with their first phases, and are all looking to further develop their presence in Denmark. And then we have some very interesting co-location companies like Digiplex, Interaction, Global Connect, and we look actually for further investments from that side also. And just to supplement the data center investments, we also included some of the connectivity investments. For example, the Mermaid link to the US coming into Esbjerg on the west coast, and also our Viking link for electricity towards the UK, and the Cobra cable towards the Netherlands. So this is sort of an overview of how the market is at the present moment.
Excuse me, Mr. Hansen.
Yeah.
Should we see your presentation, or do you want to start it? Because we don't see it. I'm not sure if you should see it, or if it's...
Oh, you should have seen it.
Of it's an introduction. Yeah, sorry. You have to share your
No, you
screen.
should have seen it, actually.
Yeah.
So that's a mistake from my side.
Yeah. Sorry, a little bit late.
But hopefully you got the points, because most of my time has been... Is it shared now?
No.
Yes.
No. Yes,
Okay.
no, it's shared.
This is the most important slide, because that shows the market overview of the Danish market, which I was mentioning with the hyperscalers and the co-locations, as well as some of the connectivity issues. So just wrapping up, just show the market developments. Of course, the COVID-19, I don't know how much we'll talk about that during this webinar, but it has had a major impact on the digital transformation, driving the need for more data center investments. Also, it's worth mentioning that Denmark actually was on top of an investment monitor and analysis last week as the best place to build data centers in 2020. What we're looking into is more investments from the co-location side, as well as the edge segment. You can say, along with the investments in 5G, in Internet of Things, and also further cloud demands. So that's pretty much our initial remarks, and we can get back to some of the details later on. We do some publications from the industry association, a market report each year, and also an ecosystem guide where you can see who are the main actors in the industry. And then we have an event in May together with the UN, where we look more into the climate positive data center. So that should be my remarks here from the beginning. So the words back to you.
So we ask Brian Mikkelsen.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, this would be very kind of you.
Welcome, Brian Mikkelsen.
Thank you so much. I've been looking forward to speaking to all of you. First of all, because it's our most important and biggest market, and second of all, because we see lots of possibilities in further exchange of views and market information. I will just give a little briefing from our point of view, and then I'm ready for if there's any questions or comments or whatever you would like to. First of all, thank you for the invitation. I'm glad to be here today to discuss the possibilities and prospects of digitalization and data centers for economic growth. As you may know, the Danish government, like the German government, announced another partial lockdown last week. And the Danish Chamber of Commerce is now struggling to ensure that the small businesses owners are rightfully compensated. Many Danish companies have felt the coronavirus like a hammer to the face, especially the Danish tourism and experience industry, as well as the retail industry, were some of the first to feel the crisis, and they still feel the crisis very much right now in Denmark. Today is felt by the entire Danish business community in one way or another, but the prospects are not all bad. On the same day as Danish Prime Minister, and that was last Monday, announced the newest partial lockdown of society, Microsoft announced that they would establish 3 new and big data centers in Denmark. And the decision by Microsoft is an important reminder for us in small Denmark. While tackling the problems of the pandemic, we also need to think ahead. That will be a day tomorrow, and hopefully very soon when the vaccinations is getting started. To reboot our economies and restore global competition, we should turn to the opportunities of the digital transformation. And that's the possibility for all of us in Europe, and also the competition with Asia and so on. Digitalization is the answer and the key for really progress in Europe. And Microsoft's decision to establish data centers in Denmark, like Apple and Facebook, shows that in Denmark we have a lot to offer. And this is very much true when it comes to digitalization and the green transition. I believe that access to the Danish energy system, which is based, as you probably know, mainly on green energy, has been an important driver for the tech companies. It shows that the digital and green transition go hand in hand. It also shows us that local communities, mayors, and local authorities in Denmark are ready to go a very long way to assist businesses when they come knocking on the door. And I'm very proud, actually, as a Dane and as a former minister who's also been working with us, that Microsoft's decision was to invest in Denmark. But an excellent Danish and local business environment is not enough. In the end, it's thanks to the European single market that data may flow across borders within the EU, just like goods and services. So data is actually more important for us than services and goods. It's the new gold. It's thanks to the single market that data centers may, without facing barriers, act as data hubs. This enables companies to connect customers with other data centers, companies, and networks across the EU. That is why I'm very concerned that the coronavirus has resulted in actually a major setback for the single market. Several countries have introduced restrictions in relation to businesses from other EU countries or other protectionist measures. If Danish and German companies are to emerge stronger from this crisis, we should not dismantle, but rather strengthen the single market. That's the opportunity for companies in Denmark and Germany. We should future-proof the legal framework of the digital economy in the whole of EU. We should foster an internal market that allows businesses to scale up and become large companies. Another concern I would like to raise for you is a stronger focus on protectionism in European countries and the use of state aid to ensure European competitiveness. In my view, Europe needs to excel by competing on a level playing field with the rest of the world, not by subsidizes, not by closing off Europe from the rest of the world, or by picking the winner. The competitiveness of Danish and German companies depends on their ability to use data from all over the world to improve products and services. But today, rules for transferring data can differ inside and outside the EU. This may complicate the transfer of data and lead organizations to change their IT strategies for the worse. That is why the EU should help create a global agreement to enable safe transfer and use of data, not only within the EU, but also beyond. It is important to maintain a competitive environment where the best businesses succeed because they are the best and not because they are helped by state aid. We should avoid all this at all cost because it will stop innovation and create monopolies. Finally, Danish and German businesses should have the best conditions for embracing the digital transformation. In this regard, one of the key elements is to enable the use of data. This requires data to be available, a strong digital infrastructure, and the skills to implement the use of data in companies. We have made very good progress on both national and European level in making more data available for businesses. The data strategy set out by Commissioner Vestager in February, as well as the follow-up with the recent Data Governance Act, are both steps in the right direction. In Denmark, when I served as a minister for many years in the Danish government, we worked out a strategy for digital growth. That strategy included an initiative to make available all climate data free for use for all companies. This initiative is becoming reality now, and we have always seen great interest. For example, the wind power industry can use the historical data to better position new wind farms. There's also great potential for innovative solutions by companies and entrepreneurs to use climate data for new data-driven projects to combat climate change. But the increasing use of data means that we need to develop the infrastructure to store, process, and transmit large amount of data. Data centers are a critical component in this infrastructure. As such, the investment in data centers are critical for continued economic development and growth. We need something more for the future. We also need the right skills. Microsoft has promised to upskill 200,000 workers in Denmark with digital skills as part of building their new data centers. Digital skills are a priority for me and the Danish Chamber of Commerce. We have worked many years to get IT and technology into schools. We also aim to increase diversity in the IT-related fields of higher education, where actually much too few women apply. On both these fronts, we see political support, actually in both sides of the border, and we will continue to use our momentum to advocate for this important agenda. To sum up, first and foremost, the most important things for business goes across borders is the European single market. It is thanks to the European single market that data centers can connect the European data economy. That is why we must work strong together to ensure a well-functioned and digital single market. This is very important. Second, and I cannot stress this enough, it is good news that we see increasing investment in data centers in Denmark, Germany, and the rest of Europe. This means that we will not rely entirely on the goodwill from other continents for our digital development. But it is important to note that the free flow of data should be supported on a global scale. Again, it is important that the current discussion on digital autonomy does not become a pathway to more protectionism. Rather, we should support the free flow of data and do so in a manner that ensures the privacy and security of our citizens and businesses. Third and final, we have to enable the use of data with a strong digital infrastructure and the skills to implement the full value of data. If we do these things, I will promise you that the future will be equally digital and bright. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope that you will have a good program for the rest of the day.
Thank you very much, Brian. It was very interesting, and it's nice to hear that you have your politics with you. We're working on this a little bit longer.
Excuse me, your camera is switched off. Please.
I switched off because somebody told me I always on the picture and they wouldn't like this face, so I gave it out. Now I come. Okay.
Yeah.
No, this is a very good example what you gave to us, and we are really strong going in this way to have our politics on the side, because always they have a new vote next year and then forget it. So, Brian, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
And so, Andreas, Jan, you have to talk now.
Thank you so much, dear Mr. Schnabel, for your brilliant moderation and insight. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to work with you. And first of all, allow me to give a warm thanks and gratefulness to our dear friend and collaborator, Benny Sørensen, who was the one who had the idea to set up this webinar. And you remember, Mr. Mikkelsen, we have already been privileged together. And I would like really thank Mr. Sørensen for his tireless efforts over the last period to bring our two countries together, to focus and to stress a European approach of small and medium enterprises. And in that regard, I think he is reliable and also a faithful partner in promoting SME issues throughout Europe. And that's the reason I would like to give the floor before I'm starting my intervention. Please, Benny, if you could just mention a few words to our participants.
Well, thank you very much, Andreas Jan, and thank you to all the participants and, for the whole day, for the day. It has been a very hard planning since we planned to have a physical meeting in the Frankfurter area, where we had a lot of planning and discussions. We would have been there now and today and have some German Glühwein, and we would have been there to have some nice food together. But as you all know, it was not practical and possible to do this. So I'm very happy that we at last managed to sit together today. All the people you see on this slide have the speakers and the organization. So thank you very much to all the organizations helping and backing us up for being able to make this this plan for today. Also, thank you to all the speakers and thank you very much to the audience that you are interested in listening to the very high dedicated people talking to us today. We of course have been looking into the possibility of making a follow-up meeting, because this issue is very, very important for both Denmark and for Germany, to make a kind of follow-up meeting. Sorry, but I don't think I'll put any date on the next possible physical meeting, but that you have that in mind. I'll come back and find the possibility of making a follow-up meeting in Frankfurt, so we can meet in real life and look for the possibilities to go more deeply into this issue. I wish you all a fantastic and excited webinar, and see you soon.
Yeah, thank you, Benny, for your wonderful statement. And what I always appreciate with you, that you never start something without showing follow-up measures, because that's always what we should agree about, that these gatherings, also these webinars, are just the possibility to give insights, to create a platform that we as an association, I mean, BVMW groups 960,000 SMEs across Germany. We are really very keen to link our members and all the participants from this webinar in order to create new opportunities, and then also in order also to become closer to each other, because oftentimes you have the phenomenon that you know very well your neighbor, but you are not knowing every time his belongings. So that's the reason. I'm very happy, Benny, that you took the initiative and you brought us together for today. Cyber security is a great and very important issue for our SMEs. I can tell you that cyber attacks are a daily reality, affecting our companies, public institutions, and as well private individuals. 96% of all our German small and medium enterprises have already had unpleasant experiences involving IT security incidents. In recent years, research of our BMW helped to make Germany and especially our members one of the leading nations in the area of IT security. And thank you so much that with the data centers, we really could contribute on that. In today's world, virtual area of our lives relies on modern communication systems, information technology, and it's all an important driver for innovations in many fields and serves to secure Germany competitiveness. The issue of IT security is coming more into focus because we all depend on safe and reliable information technology, be it in the fields of energy supply, healthcare, logistics, and transport, or in the field of finance. So, as you know, cyber attacks are becoming increasingly frequent and increasingly professional. The federal government network at least subject to 5 serious attacks on every day. Almost every SME has experienced serious security incidents. The manipulation of accounting and financial data is also a growing problem. The Federal Criminal Police Office confirmed a 3.4% increase in computer crimes in 2019, with a total of almost 100,000 cases. Figures showed out that crimes involving the alteration of data and computer sabotage are becoming an increasing hazard. And the damage caused to industry and society is immense. Industry is suffering a considerable financial loss due to loss of value creation, loss of trust, and industrial espionage. According to a study by our BMW association, the damage to German SMEs caused by espionage totals approximately 4.2 billion euro per year. So the economic and social development of today's modern industrial society is linked inseparably with the security of their ITC systems. So you contribute with your data centers really to this security, and that's why IT security made in Germany is an international request. In order to secure and enhance Germany's and Denmark's position, the Ministry of German Security has established an important research to innovate approaches to IT security as a priority task. So we will try together to secure critical infrastructure as databases. So many areas of social and economic life depend on efficient and reliable ICT systems and on people's trust in the security of these systems. This is particularly obvious with regard to the use of ICT in critical infrastructures such as electricity supply, communications network, water supply, and transport. Germany and Denmark, like all European countries and other modern industrial nations, depends on the efficiency of these infrastructures. In recent years, complex and in some cases prolonged attacks on the IT systems of SME plants and infrastructure have shown just how vulnerable these facilities are. Our partner and privileged sponsor Deutsche Telekom reports around 450,000 attacks per day. 450,000 attacks per day. And this number is increasing all the time. So high priority is therefore being given to projects, research and development, new solutions for IT security and critical infrastructure. So let me close with this saying that cloud computing is establishing itself throughout the world in ubiquitous and ever available, flexible and expandable method of providing IT services. However, established security technologies can often only be applied to cloud applications to a limited extent or not at all. So that's why we need a strong creation of database and data center networks. And that's why I'm very grateful to discuss with all of you the main security issues of today. So thanks so much. Thanks a lot, Benny Sørensen, for your input and also for your time, Mr. Nicholson, and all the discussion participants. Our association will almost have a strong focus of cybersecurity issues and will always collaborate strongly with you. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think the next point is by Jesper Kjærgaard. I hopefully have the right pronunciation for your name. He's the business director of Abenra in municipality. Please, Jesper, if you have now time, go ahead.
Thank you very much for the invitation to participate, and thank you to all you good people that stand behind this arrangement. I'm very happy to be part of it. As you said, I represent the municipality of Aabenraa, just close to the Danish-German border. And my job is to guide investors and support them in their work. I develop sites in this area and I manage the sale of land. And I have a presentation that I would like to share with you. So, as you see, we are located in the German-Danish cross-border area. And this map shows the density, the dark red areas showing the density of jobs. And while the rest of Denmark have their eyes focused on the capital area and Copenhagen, we of course also have that, but we have a strong gaze, a very strong gaze to the south, to our friends in Großraum Hamburg and beyond, because this has a very large impact on the job market and the possibilities for business in our area. So, and we are only 156 kilometers away from the Hamburg airport in Fuhlsbüttel, just north of the city. So this is an area of German, Danish, and English-speaking people. And when we dive into the cross-border area, we have a close cooperation between the municipalities on Danish side and the Landeskreise of on the German side, Landeskreis Nordfriesland and Landeskreis Schleswig-Flensburg. And what we try to do is to facilitate this cross-border job market, providing services for people who want to live on one side of the border and work on the other side of the border. And as you see to the right on the map, this is necessary because we have very different administrative structures and very different rules from the Gemeinden south of the border to the municipalities in southern Denmark. But we have been practicing this cooperation for some years now and are getting better every day at it. Of course, the COVID-19 doesn't help us very much, but that goes for all, I think. About 5 years ago, we noticed great interest for a large substation called Kassø, just outside of Aabenraa, where we had contacts from different site selectors working for data center industry. And we became aware that this substation, this very large transformer substation, is very important for us in order to develop the production of green energy, but also for developing sites for the data center industry. And Apple was, as I said, the first company looking at it. But when we look into the map of the area now, this is the status, and this is what has happened. So Apple has bought 285 hectares in this area, and just next to it, the company Google have bought 131 hectares. South, just south of the power station, the company SAP has bought 15 hectares, and close to that area, there's a new 400 kV line being built, connecting us with Germany and the European backbone grid. The red area, we have just finished a local plan for this area, giving the possibility for the company European Energy to build a 300 megawatt solar power plant. And it's planned to be up and running at the end of 2021. The blue lines to the left are the gas pipes connecting us with Germany. Just next to it, we have a biogas plant that's being developed now, and in this context, the possibility of hydrogen production is being thought in and developed too. So it started with the power station with connection possibilities on the 60 kV, 150 and 400 kV levels. But now it's being used by, on the one side, data center investments, and on the other hand, the possibility to develop production of green energy. But in order to come that far, you have to start a permitting process with the municipality. And this can be like jumping into very cold water. I will be the first to admit this. But we have tried to ease the pain by implementing some support for companies. A key account manager will be appointed so that it's possible to have a guide between the different permits needed, and the processes are digitalized. This meaning that it's never closed. We're always open. And we try to provide compact and coordinated timelines because the need for speed to market is understandable. And apart from that, we have learning from working with many companies. We have developed a due diligence tool so that we can enter the risk assessment process together with the companies when they're ready to build their business case. when we ask the investors about what works and what does not work, they mention almost the same main factors that are the reasons for their focus on the Danish-German cross-border region. First, it's the availability of reliable and redundant power supply on the 60, 150 and 400 kV grids. It's also the connectivity, the large capacity of dark fiber for sale, and the good connectivity with the subsea cables coming in on the west coast that Henrik mentioned, but also to the larger German cities. It's the stable and cool climate, the availability of water for cooling for those who need this, but also it's the Danish-German workforce available in the cross-border area. In many of our companies in this area, half of the people employed are German and the other half Danish, and very often you will see that the language spoken at the companies will be German. Also, we have lots of lands, very small cities compared to Germany, so scalable sites close to the power availability are at hand. The ease of doing business, trying to break down the permits in suitable lumps, and the competitive cost when it comes to going to market with your product. So this is what we have learned and what we have got, and I will stop with this and say thank you for letting me participate here, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the event, and the word is yours, Harry.
So thank you, Jesper. If I hear you, then we have a lot of connections with Germany near to Hamburg, what I like very much. And so sometimes we can speak in German. I think you speak German at all?
Ja, das tue ich.
Ja, das tust du, das habe ich mir gedacht. Jesper, ganz lieben Dank. Das war eine große Übersicht, die ich in dieser Form noch nicht gesehen hatte. Und es wird vielen von uns auch so gehen, die heute dazuhören. Und dein Vortrag war hervorragend. Thank you very much. I go back in the English word.
You're welcome.
So now we have Michael Resch, Director of the High Performance Computing Center in Stuttgart.
Thanks for the kind invitation to talk about the role of high performance computing for the development of the digital industry. In my talk, since it is not too long, I will address mainly three issues. The first one is a short thing. I will introduce HLRS to make you aware of where we stand, who we are, and why we think the way we think. I will then talk about some implications that high performance computing has on data centers, as this might be interesting for some of the people in the audience. And then I'll talk about something which I think is going to shape the future, which I call digital convergence, the collaboration or the coming together of three technologies. One is then high performance computing, the other is the Internet of Things, and the third one is what typically is called artificial intelligence. So let me start by introducing a little bit HLRS. The acronym stands for Höchstleistungsrechenzentrum Stuttgart. So we are a national center in Germany, and our mission is to provide solutions for computational science and engineering in four main fields. Obviously, we are responsible for all research activities in Germany, together with two partner centers in Garching and Jülich. So every scientist who needs a supercomputer can ask for resources, and then if that request is approved, can access our systems. Our focus there is on the engineering, while Garching is more on astrophysics, geophysics, and Jülich is more on basic research. And then our second most important customers are coming from industry. We have about 60, 65 companies working with our systems, ranging from a very small company like Recom, which with 8 people working for them, up to Porsche, which is currently at about 27,000 people working for them. The number keeps increasing. So we are working with small companies, medium-sized companies, and you may consider a 27,000 people a large company. But then we also support society and politics in answering their questions, and I'll say a few words about this in my next slide. What you see here is the topics we are interested in. It's energy, that's climate change and the environment, that's health and the aging society. And that's obviously when you're in Stuttgart, mobility in the 21st century, when you work with Mercedes, you work with Porsche, you work with Bosch and other supply industries. But then also digital societies and the simulation of digital societies. And I'll say a few words about that when I talk about applications that are pushed by the digital convergence. And we do combine these topics wherever possible. That makes us working with a number of technologies. High performance computing is certainly the most important one, but there are 3 other topics that are relevant for us. One is data to solution, as I call it, which is everything that starts with a pile of data and ends with, say, a clever decision or a artificial intelligence decision recommendation coming from an artificial intelligence system. Cybersecurity is increasingly becoming important for everyone who is running a large-scale system, because a supercomputer or a high-performance computer is what I call a weapon of mass destruction. Access to these systems is prohibited to anyone who wants to use the system as a military or as intelligence device. And we have seen this in the last months when people were hacking themselves into a number of European large-scale systems. Fortunately, our operational systems were not affected, so our cybersecurity team is working well, but our open system was attacked, and that was pretty difficult. Another issue is green IT, and you will see later on why green IT is important for us. As a university, we spend a lot of money on electricity, on power and cooling. And so we have to deal with these aspects here too. This is our flagship system. It's 44 million euro investment. We call it Hawk. It's an HPE Apollo. And you see it has a high number of cores. That's how you build an HPC system these days. And I assume you're familiar with that. And then everyone who is looking at HPC is looking at certain numbers like peak performance, which is 26 petaflops, and LINPACK performance, which is 19 point something petaflops. With this, we are number, I think, 16 in the top 500 list. But keep in mind that this LINPACK benchmark is highly irrelevant. It is mainly used to get a spot on the list of the fastest systems in the world. What we actually expect to see is something like 2 or maybe 2.5 petaflops of real performance on that system. So what's happening in HPC? When we look at HPC from a, say, research and industrial point of view, what we see is that we had this growing peak speed for decades, but we see a flattening of the curve since about 2008. This is not very surprising. We saw processors in HPC with a clock frequency of 1 gigahertz back in the 1980s. And it turned out pretty much that there is a limit of 2 to 4 gigahertz for a standard processor, which is currently used in HPC, which you can hardly exceed. And the picture on the left bottom by Gordon Moore shows our problem here. The yellow dots indicate active power consumption, while the green triangles indicate leakage. And what you see is that power consumption is continuously increasing. Leakage is increasing even more dramatically, and that means huge power consumption, a lot of leakage. That means you have to cool a lot. So things are getting incredibly difficult. And basically by the year 2002, processor development in terms of peak clock frequency stopped. And so it's not surprising that in 2008 we saw that the curve started to flatten. And we now see increasingly that yes, we will get to the exaflop, but we are not very optimistic about what happens after, say, the year 2025 or beyond 2030. Moore's law is practically coming to an end. We currently see, when we go back to Moore, we talk about feature size. We currently see 5 nanometer technology. We see that 3 nanometer can be expected. We see that 1 nanometer might be possible. But we don't see how anyone would then break the 1 nanometer barrier, substantially going down to something like 0.1 nanometer or anything like that. So high performance computing is basically getting hot, and it's extremely power consuming, and that has some implications for data centers, which are interesting in themselves. It's mainly 3 issues that come to our minds by now. The first issue is weight. That is probably a bit surprising, but what happens is that you are cramming more components on the same chip. You're cramming more chips onto the same board, and you're putting more boards on the floor. So we're currently estimating that the floor of a data center should be able to cover something like 3 tons per square meter. We are currently at 1.5 at HLRS, for example, and we are working on a new computer room to be available in 2026. And there we are certainly going to be very close to the 3 tons per square meter. That increases the costs, definitely, but that's not the most expensive thing here. When we look at power, things are getting much more difficult. For high-performance computing systems, we expect to see up to 30, maybe even 50 megawatt for a single system. This will be systems that are delivered to national labs in the US or to national universities in China. And this level of power consumption is, for everyone who is not familiar with that, that's the power consumption of a smaller African country. So any one of these large-scale systems will consume the same amount of power that is consumed by 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 million people in Africa. So that's substantially high, and we should keep that in mind. And the development is just shown here in the numbers for HLRS. In 1995, our large-scale supercomputer was 60 kilowatt. In 2005, it was a factor of 10, it was 600 kilowatt. And then in 2015, it was a factor of 6 roughly, which is 3.5 megawatt, sorry. And in 2026, we assume to see something like 8 megawatt. It's not very clear yet how much we will see, but you see that starting in 1995, over a course of 30 years, we see a factor of more than 100 in power consumption, which is reflected in the infrastructure that you have to provide, but it's also reflected in the costs that you have to cover. Rough idea for your understanding, a megawatt is roughly 1.5 million euros so per year, so 8 megawatt is going to be 8.5 million euro of electricity costs, while in 1995 that was something like, I don't know, 90,000 euros, something like that. So that was something which was not that relevant. Now with the increase in power comes the cooling, and there we are looking at free cooling, but we are increasingly looking at the usage of waste heat, which is not trivial. The main issue there is not the technical issue. You can use the waste heat, you can run these systems, supercomputer systems with temperatures up to probably 40, 45 degrees inlet temperature and then plus 10 degrees outlet temperature. That's possible in principle, and you can then use the hot water to heat whatever you would like to heat. Maybe you need some heating pumps or anything like that. or you can work with a low temperature heating. So technically it's expensive, but it's not a problem. The much bigger problem for us in the field of HPC is that we expect to see an improvement in high performance computing in 2030, 2032, which will not be targeting the highest performance. So people or companies are not going to try to increase the level of performance very much, but they will try to reduce the power consumption level. So when you are a university and you look at your waste heat and you try to use that heat to heat all your buildings, and the 8 megawatt should be by far enough to heat the whole campus of the University of Stuttgart. That's nice for the next 5, 6, 7 years or something like that. But what happens if 6, 7 years later you go for a next supercomputer and the power consumption is only half of that? Then you're running out of heat. So that's opens interesting new questions. By the way, also new funding questions. What happens if you get the funding for a new publicly available supercomputer from the federal government? And then what you do is you use it as a large heating device for the whole university, reducing your costs by 1 million or 2 million or maybe 3 million euro per year. The Federal Ministry of Science might ask questions like, ain't you abusing a scientific device here? And instead of using it for supercomputing, you're basically using it to heat your campus. That's a tricky question, which is interesting for us mainly. Now, a few words about convergence of methods. What we are claiming is that we have achieved a level of maturity in digital technologies to allow us to converge everything. Let me show you a supercomputer, and you probably won't see it well with my camera, but this device is a smartphone. I think it's a Samsung. And I figured 2 or 3 years ago that it has the same performance that our first national supercomputer had in 1986. At the time, the cost for this device was 60 million Deutschmark, and today it's nothing because you buy it with some miles from the Miles and More shop of Lufthansa, so you don't even see the cost. But what that practically means is that high-performance computing starts to becoming available to everyone. Not only because these systems are available in the cloud, but mainly because these systems are available in handheld devices. So you get an extremely high level of performance. With this, you can do climate simulations that are good enough to predict the climate for the next 50 years. With this, you can run a crash simulation that is good enough to design a Porsche car. And with this device, you can also do flow simulations to optimize the wing of a plane. So you typically don't do it, but you have this level of performance at hand. Now, what you rather do with that is something completely different. You start to connect to the Internet of Things. This device is anyway connected to the Internet, and this is the second technology that we think is extremely important. The Internet of Things will provide us with a huge amount of data and with a lot of communication, but the main thing that is important, relevant, and interesting is the huge amount of data. Now, what do you make of these data? The answer is relatively easy. You're using artificial intelligence. So you try to extract knowledge from the data and prepare intelligent decisions. Whatever you want to call intelligent, we need not discuss this here. But in order to extract that knowledge from data, you need the supercomputing power. So what is going to happen is that today we have this level of performance available to practically everyone. We have the data and we have the methodology, the algorithms, to actually extract information from the data by using high-performance computing. So high-performance computing, I would claim, is one of the 3 main drivers in digital industries, which allows to create services and new solutions that were not available or impossible like 10 years ago. And then let's look at some examples. I've only taken 2 of them because I don't want to waste your time too much. This example I took 1.5 years ago. I think I first showed this in a presentation in spring or summer 2019. So this is not an example that I picked because of the coronavirus. But it's a very nice example because what it does, and this is a simulation that was not done by HRS, but by US scientists. What it does is it has a look at the data, at the travel data, and it does a simulation of what is happening if you have a virus spread at any one of these nodes in the system that you see. And when you look at this simulation results and at the information that you put together in this single picture, you immediately see Shanghai and you see Singapore, and you see how well these are connected to Europe, and you see how well then in turn Europe is connected to the US, and you can simply follow the path of Corona. For those of you who know where Wuhan is, you will see that Wuhan is loosely connected to Shanghai. There is a train connection, there are flight connections, so you can go to Shanghai practically every hour by high-speed train. And by using this, it probably first went to Shanghai and from there to Europe and to the US. When you follow up on the first wave and how the first wave developed, you will find that yes, the first wave started in China, then moved to the close nearby countries like Japan, well connected, and also Taiwan. You shouldn't be surprised that it moved on to Taiwan because Taiwan is also well connected to China mainland, although there's sometimes fighting. But then it very quickly appeared in Europe, and then later on it showed up in the US. So what you're doing here is you're combining data and information with simulation performance to predict and see what is going to happen. And basically, if any one of you is watching German news, you may have heard the discussions about the prime ministers not having believed in certain results they saw late in October. These results indicated that we should be much more careful with the coronavirus, and there should have been a lockdown rather earlier. So supercomputers not only play around with information, they can actually give you information that is meaningful, at least if you're willing to accept what you see, which is not always the case. And then a second example I love to show is because it shows you the opportunities and it shows you the potential of services that you can create if you put together the performance, the data, and the methodology to understand the data based on the performance that you have available. And that is what I call the smart citizens for smart cities. And there you have on the left, and I'll stop with that here, you have on the left a number of services that are relevant and extremely important. And I remember a talk given by Kofi Annan about 3 years ago in a conference, a small workshop actually in one of the castles close to Stuttgart, where he said this is the major key problem in the world, and it is even more important in Africa. And he was referring to all of these bits and pieces here. Now, we are not going to build the smart city, the first smart city in Africa, but we can transform the cities of the world, at least of the developed world, in a way that could substantially improve the quality of life of the people. And this is where I see a contribution of high performance computing, and this is where I see an impact of high performance computing on the digital industries. Okay, with that, I'm done. I'm happy. I'll stop sharing the slides if you agree with that, and take any questions that probably might have come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I have one question to Corinna. Was is more, but they need more on computers or on transfers? Because we have so many transfers now with the corona, everybody is going with a handy. And do you have a figure for that?
You mean no? Just rephrase the question, please. I didn't get the first part of the question.
Sometimes we talk about that we have the 2020, we have 400% more than transfers and digital things. So we need more computers and more data centers.
Yeah.
My question is, because it was very interesting what you explained, and we have to see it later on again. What was will we grow up the next year with Corona and with all the other things, if we always are sitting at home and have home office and this stuff?
Well, what you see are two things. What you basically see are two main things. The first thing is, yes, everybody is looking for digitalization and everybody is looking for these digital services. And there, what we definitely see, and I find it well suited that we have Danish and German data centers in this meeting. Is that there is a gold standard, which is probably Denmark, and there is a bad case, which is Germany. So I think in Germany we will see an attempt to catch up with Denmark and probably with some of the other further developed countries when it comes to digitalization. But on the other hand, when people say that the coronavirus and the crisis show that people can work at home and people don't need to travel, I see just the opposite. I get emails from my colleagues around the world, and everybody is saying, we want to meet, we want to meet, we want to meet. So yes, some things will be kept after the crisis. More people will work at home from time to time, but I don't think they will work from home permanently. And yes, we will substitute some of the travel by video conferencing. And there are tools in the making that allow you to do sort of three-dimensional video conferencing, where you can see the avatar of the people you're talking to, and there is your avatar, and you can see how people react and how they sit, and it's not two-dimensional but three-dimensional, which probably gives you a nicer feeling. I have tested it, and it doesn't give me a really nice feeling. But I think that a lot of people still want to see each other and talk to each other face to face, because in the communication, body language is important, face language is important, which you don't see when you just look at the camera. So I think there is a factor that will substantially increase the market and the opportunities, and there is not a total takeover of the real world by the digital world.
Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. There's one more question, please, then now for him. If not, then we go to Jens Müller. And he is also in our German Data Center Association, the second German. And yeah, Jens, please.
Yeah, hello to everybody from my side. My name is Jens Müller, and I work as a country manager for Keppel Data Centers, an international DC operator and investor. Before that, I was with Deutsche Telekom T-Systems, and I have 20 years of experience in the German colo data center market. Since 2018, I'm also engaged in the German Data Center Association as the second chairman. I was asked to contribute something to today's topic, which is DCs in Denmark and Germany. When just comparing the Danish and the German DC market starting positions, one has to confess that there is not a level playing field. Germany as a country doesn't really push or promote the data center sector as part of an Industry 4.0 strategy, as most European governments do these days. The lobby work for data centers hasn't really led to an improvement for operators. We still have the highest power prices, not only for private households, but also for the data centers.
Darf ich mal kurz stören, Jens?
Ja.
Dein Mikrofon macht da Dok dauernd.
Bitte?
Dein Mikrofon macht irgendwelche Störungen rein, wenn du sprichst.
Okay, ja, muss ich vielleicht ein bisschen runternehmen. Ja, okay.
So ist besser.
Yeah. So there's no exception for renewable energies levy, the so-called EEG Umlage. Unlike the manufacturing sector, which is freed from that levy because the government acknowledges competition on a global market for those companies. International customers in the data center segment, however, have to pay for the German energy transition. That is even though the IT industry, which depends on local offerings, has proven itself to be the backbone for millions of home offices during COVID and delivers a stable platform for all kinds of businesses in Germany. Looking at today's panel, we can see some higher ranked former politicians from Denmark as lobbyists for their home market. As an association, we tried, of course, to invite some German counterparts, but we were not able to get any confirmation even from those on a local level in Frankfurt, where the city budget benefits from that business more than any other city's budget in Germany. To my Danish fellow speakers, I hope you all don't mind that upfront statement. I wish we had government support around here in Germany as you have it in your country in Denmark. We envy you for that landscape. Okay, starting with some numbers. So the German market has seen double-digit growth rate throughout the last 5 years, which of course is linked to the upcoming public cloud offerings and the need for infrastructure outsourcing of SEME businesses. Those 70% growth are among the highest in the IT sector, where other submarkets like software license selling and outsourcing models are staggering or declining. By location, the German market splits up into many different cities. Germany has, unlike other European countries, not a single mega scale city where all business happens. Yet there is something special about Frankfurt, which not only has the highest total number of colo DCs, but also by far the biggest ones. So in terms of total load, the picture would be even more drastical and Frankfurt centered. We have around 50,000 structures in Germany that can be called data centers, starting from like air-conditioned cabinet in a company's basement, but only 300 out of those 50,000 are bigger than 500 square meters, and only 80 are bigger than 5,000 square meters. Most of those very large ones are located in Frankfurt. So even on an international layer, Frankfurt is among the top 5 so-called tier 1 markets with yearly take-up of around 50 to 60 megawatts on average. In 2019, Frankfurt had a record-breaking year and even topped London as the biggest market in Europe with 80 megawatts new supply. But that was only temporarily. Yeah, of course, those growth rates have some negative side effects, especially if you consider that Frankfurt is a relatively small city in terms of metropolitan area and compared to those other tier 1 cities, which are a lot bigger. Sorry that these cut-out excerpts from newspaper and media articles are German only, but I'm sure all of us get the message. From the increasing customer demand for presence and uncontrolled growth of data center business in Frankfurt, we can see several negative impacts on grid capacities, price for industrial land, which has become scarce and very expensive. Other businesses and traditional urban developments can't follow those prices anymore and will be driven out of the city. Grid operators can't deliver capacity anymore. These developments are similar in all of those tier 1 markets. Amsterdam, for example, had a temporary freeze of all data of those data center projects and stalled the complete market in 2018. Frankfurt local authorities started reacting and tried to map out data center clusters for new projects to have better control and harmonize these developments with other city planning priorities. So the big question is, why are some regions and cities booming and others don't? Why do all customers try to get a presence in the same markets? Why are businesses accepting higher cost for power and capacity, seemingly ignoring sustainability aspects? The answer to that is very simple and has to do with latency facts. there are some applications that react more sensible to latency issues than others. And not only that, there are a lot of consumers of data transfer that react critical to slow application performance. Today, nobody wants to experience slow web shop responses or network interruptions when watching Netflix or attending video calls, not to speak of those highly critical trading systems from the financial sector that require almost real-time environments. In the world of tomorrow, there will be IoT scenarios which will drive down tolerance for latency even more and don't allow for central data processing per country anymore. That's why we see edge sites coming up to cater for that demand. Of course, there are also a lot of applications and workloads like HPC, we heard that from Mr. Resch, or archiving, disaster recovery that are non-latency critical and therefore ideal to be placed in data centers with better sustainability from geolocation and power supply point of view. So looking at Frankfurt as an example, for a hot market that draws a lot of demand, we can see that the critical 50 millisecond radius for round trip that is relevant for a lot of today's standard application covers not only all of Germany, but also some neighboring countries. So by selecting the right location, a company can automatically increase the level of eyeballs that will consume their services without facing technical issues. Eyeball stands for human eyes, of course, in this regard, and is what the big cloud guys are after with their services. That's what explains their astronomical growth rates best. Besides, Frankfurt is the home to D6, the world's biggest IXP that allows for multiple connectivity options as a standard service in those data center locations, only a cross-connect away. So when we compare the pros and cons of the different markets in Europe, there isn't a clear picture or a winner. It's almost a tie. Both specimens have their advantages and disadvantages. The Nordics have double pluses in the fields of cost, governmental support, and environmentally friendly data centers. The tier 1 markets in metro locations are strong in all aspects of connectivity hub, eyeball coverage, and business reach. It remains to be seen how the demand for edge presence will affect that scenario and mix up things again. So my personal bottom line or conclusion I'm prepared to discuss in the panel, of course, is that application determines the DC location, that edge will drive this trend further, that those tier 1 markets will retain their importance as hubs, despite all their challenges, of course, and the Nordics are the best option to combine sustainability, price, and cloud backend in Europe. So I'm done. Thanks for your attention. Any questions I can answer now? Then thank you again.
So do we have questions at all? Benny, you are working?
If I'm working?
Yeah, you are there now.
Well, I would like to say, it's important that we have 5 to 6 more minutes. Yes?
Yes, I have a question for Jens with regard to the latency, which I agree that's a very important issue. How do you see the development with regard to latency? Are you increasing the 50 millisecond radius with new technology, or is pretty stable in your view?
I mean, you can't really increase light speed. I mean, one of the basic preconditions of fiber latency is light speed. And then it's a question of how many hubs and pieces of infrastructure are between you and your customer. So there is limited options to reduce that. What I think is that the number of applications that require very low latency will grow. But on the other hand, there will be ways to distribute workloads across this staggered network and put each deployment with special latency issues in the place that serves best. So, I mean, look at all these cloud guys. They have data centers in Denmark as well as they have large capacities in Frankfurt. And there's a reason for that. If there's only one place with all the benefits and upsides, they wouldn't go for a presence in both markets.
Also, I thought about your statement with regard to the government strategy or a focus on the industry. Sometimes, I guess, in Denmark, we're not appreciative enough from the Danish government, but I can hear compared to the German government, maybe they do.
I think we are the exception. I mean, there's a lot of places in Europe that have similar programs like Denmark has and a similar interest from politicians' side in the sector. So I think Germany is pretty much relying on traditional businesses and industries, on producing stuff and not so much on data-centric models, business models. So that might be turning around in a short while, but I haven't seen more interest from government side to really improve not only power. Power is just one aspect. But you had it all on your charts. There's a lot of things that the government can work on to really improve the situation for data center business. There's simply, at the moment, there's no interest because I think too few people are employed by the sector. You have the benefit of being late. You can choose your customers and your locations and your workloads.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much to all of you. It was a real brilliant discussion for all those who are really connected on everyday basis to the topic. And I received already some feedback from our members who were really thrilled by the level of the discussion, also by the tendency. And as Benny Sørensen suggested, I would like really to encourage you within 6 months to come together again and to discuss how we can move forward our cooperation, strengthen also our efforts to a European level. We have also strong focus to Brussels. The BMW is member of CAPME, European Entrepreneurs, the biggest small and medium association in Europe. And we are really well connected also in Brussels by our experts and representatives. So I would really encourage you to focus next time to rules and regulations from European Union and other players. I think it was really overwhelming, really worthwhile to come together today. And thanks again to Benny Sørensen, who was the enabler and facilitator for all of us. Thank you also to Mr. Mikkelsen for your time, to Mr. Kierkegaard, to Mr. Müller and Mr. Hansen, and Mr. Resch, of course, and especially thanks to Harry Werner Schnabel, who really did a great job in order to present the speakers and helping us to come together. We really are sorry for some technical challenges. That's always what happened in this time of webinars and video conferences, but I think we did pretty well to come to the right point, to a right moment. Benny, would you like to say a closing word to your friends and to all the participants? And myself, I wish you Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, stay safe, and stay connected with the German Mittelstand. Please, Benny.
Thank you very much, Andreas Jan. I think you made a fantastic job, Andreas, with your closing word. But the last word I would like to say once again to everybody, to the audience, to all the speakers for a fantastic meeting, clearing a lot of open questions. But we didn't finish yet. So I think we should take up the possibility to meet again in 6 months' time. I will take the initiative again and find out how we can do it without giving any date today. And after this meeting, I will send all the presentations together with the BVMV to all the participants and everybody being here today, so that everybody has the same knowledge about what has been said today. So thank you very much to everybody. Have a nice week, fantastic Christmas, and stay safe.
You too.